My first proposal went awry. Facing rejection on the big day, I had rehearsed the moment 1,000 times in my head, the velvet box in my palm, the glitter of the diamond under the evening lights, the way her eyes would widen, then glisten with tears as she said yes. But reality doesn't care about rehearsals. When I finally dropped to one knee, surrounded by our friends and family at what was supposed to be the happiest night of my life, her reaction was not tears of joy. It was silence. Heavy, suffocating silence. She stared at me, her lips trembling, eyes darting nervously at the crowd. And then she whispered the word that detonated everything: no. The world seemed to shatter in slow motion. Gasps echoed around us. Someone coughed uncomfortably, someone else dropped their champagne glass. I stayed frozen, ring box still open, heart hammering so violently I thought it might burst out of my chest. I thought rejection was the worst thing that could happen that night. But it wasn't, because seconds later a man in the crowd stepped forward, and she looked at him. Not at me, at him. Her lips trembled, not from fear but guilt. And I realized with sickening clarity that she wasn't just rejecting me. She was exposing me. Exposing that I wasn't the only one she'd been whispering promises to. Her name was Emily, and for 2 years I believed she was my future. We had shared apartments, holidays, whispered dreams about our future children. I thought she was my anchor, the person who made the chaos of life bearable. But now, standing under the weight of 100 shocked eyes, I saw the truth. I was nothing more than a safety net. The man who stepped forward, his name was Ryan. I knew him. Everyone knew him. He was Emily's co-worker. The one she always claimed was just a friend. The way she looked at him made my stomach twist. It was the kind of look I thought she reserved for me. The kind of look I'd chased for years. He didn't even say anything. He just placed a hand on her arm, and the message was clear. He was the reason she couldn't say yes. He was the reason she broke me in front of everyone I loved. And the betrayal wasn't just the cheating. It was the timing. She could have told me before the party, before I spent weeks planning the perfect proposal, before inviting our families, before engraving the words "Forever Yours" inside the band of the ring. But no, she let me kneel, let me bare my heart to her, let me become a spectacle, just so she could announce her love for someone else in the most humiliating way possible. The weeks that followed were a blur of whispers, pitying looks, and unanswered questions. Emily moved in with Ryan almost immediately, confirming what everyone suspected. People told me it dodged a bullet. That better love was waiting for me. But at night, when silence pressed in too heavily, I didn't feel like it dodged anything. I felt like I'd been hollowed out. What stung most wasn't just the betrayal, it was that she had planned it. The rejection wasn't spontaneous, it was choreographed cruelty. She had known long before that night that she didn't want me. Yet she let me walk blind into my own public execution. Months later, I ran into Emily by accident. She was holding Ryan's hand, and though she smiled, there were lines around her eyes that hadn't been there before. "Hey," she said softly, almost timidly, "you look good." I forced a smile. "Better than the last time you saw me." Her face faltered. Ryan shifted uncomfortably beside her. And for the first time, I felt something I hadn't since that night: power. Because I realized she would always carry the shame of what she did. She would always know she hadn't been brave enough to leave quietly, respectfully. She had chosen betrayal over honesty. And me? I had survived it. Now, when I think back to that proposal, I no longer feel humiliation. I feel clarity. Her no wasn't the end of my story, it was the beginning of a better one. Because betrayal, as cruel as it feels in the moment, has a hidden gift. It shows you who someone really is. And once you see it, you can never unsee it. And the next time I kneel before someone, it won't be to a woman who looks at another man. It will be to someone who looks only at me. Continuation, when the past comes crawling back. 6 months had passed since that night. 6 months since Emily's no ripped through me like shrapnel in front of 100 witnesses. I thought I'd healed. I thought moving apartments, cutting her out of my life, deleting her photos, and throwing the ring into a drawer would erase her from my bloodstream. But betrayal doesn't bleed out quickly. It stains. And just when I had started to rebuild, Emily came back. It was late. almost midnight, when my phone buzzed. Her name lit up the screen. My first instinct was to ignore it, but curiosity can be a cruel master. Against my better judgment, I answered. Her voice was shaky. "Can we talk?" I almost laughed. Talk? What was left to say? But something in her tone, fear, desperation, hooked me. Against the screaming of my pride, I agreed to meet her at a quiet cafe the next day. When she walked in, she didn't look like the radiant woman who once stole my breath. She looked tired. Her eyes were hollow, her smile thin, her movements hesitant. She sat down across from me, hands trembling around a cup she didn't drink. Ryan and I were not together anymore. I kept my expression neutral, though inside, a dozen thoughts clawed at me. Of course you're not. He was never going to stick around once the thrill wore off. She continued, voice breaking. He wasn't who I thought he was. He cheated on me. The irony nearly made me choke. I stared at her, waiting for the punchline. You mean the guy you left me for betrayed you? Her eyes filled with tears. I know I don't deserve your sympathy. I know what I did to you was unforgivable. But I had to tell you I made a mistake. I leaned back, the bitterness bubbling up. A mistake. Emily, you didn't trip and fall into his arms. You planned it. You humiliated me in front of everyone I loved. You let me kneel there like a fool while you stared at him. That's not a mistake, that's a choice. She flinched, tears sliding down her cheeks. You're right. I destroyed everything. But I thought maybe we could start over. Maybe I could show you have changed. I wanted to scream at her. To throw every sleepless night, every flashback of her eyes locked on Ryan back in her face. But instead, I just asked one question. Why now? Her silence was answer enough. Ryan was gone. She was alone. And suddenly, the man shed discarded like trash looked like a safe harbor again. But here's the twist. Despite everything, part of me still wanted her. That's the curse of betrayal. It doesn't kill love instantly. It twists it, poisons it, but the feelings linger like smoke after a fire. I hated her for what she had done, but I also remembered the nights we laughed until morning, the way her hand fit in mine, the dreams we'd painted together. So, against every piece of advice I knew my friends would scream at me, I let her back in. Slowly, carefully, like touching a flame you know will burn you. At first, things felt almost normal. She apologized constantly, overcompensating with affection. She cooked my favorite meals, left little notes on my desk, clung to me at night as though I might vanish if she let go. But beneath the surface, the cracks were still there. One night, after a few glasses of wine, she confessed something I wasn't ready to hear. That night, she whispered, eyes glassy, when I said no, I almost said yes. But I looked at Ryan and I panicked. I thought he was the one. I thought leaving you for him would make me happier. I didn't realize until too late that I threw away the best thing I ever had. Her words cut deep, because while she thought they were healing, they were poison. Every time she said, I almost said yes, my mind replayed the moment, the silence, the laughter in the crowd, Ryan stepping forward. And then, just as I thought maybe, just maybe, we could rebuild something, betrayal struck again. It was subtle at first. Late-night texts she brushed off as work. Calls she declined when I walked into the room. A sudden urge to stay late at her job. The paranoia gnawed at me. I told myself I was imagining things, projecting old wounds onto new behavior. But one night, when she left her phone on the counter while showering, temptation won. And what I saw shattered me for the second time. Messages. Hundreds of them. Not with Ryan this time, he was long gone. But with another man. A different co-worker. Different name, same story. Flirty texts. Secret meetings. Plans whispered behind my back. The cruelest part, she had written, I don't know why I keep doing this. He deserves better than me. And she was right. That night, I didn't yell. I didn't throw things. I didn't demand explanations. I simply packed her things into boxes, left them by the door, and wrote a note. You had one chance to prove you were different. You proved you're exactly the same. Don't come back. When she came home and saw the boxes, she sobbed, begged, dropped to her knees. But this time, I didn't waver. This time, I walked away. It's been a year since then. People sometimes ask if I regret letting her back in only to be betrayed again, but I don't, because the second betrayal didn't just wound me, it freed me. The first time, I doubted myself. I wondered what I did wrong, what I lacked. The second time, I finally saw the truth. It wasn't me. It was her. And knowing that gave me closure. Funny thing is, I'm dating someone new now. Someone who looks at me with the kind of love Emily only ever faked. Someone who doesn't flinch at commitment, who doesn't chase shiny distractions, who doesn't leave me kneeling in the dirt. Sometimes, late at night, I still think about that first proposal, the glittering ring, the humiliating no, the betrayal that followed. But now, I don't see it as the worst day of my life. I see it as the day I was set free. Continuation, when ghosts refused to die. 3 years had passed since I put Emily out of my life for good. 3 years of silence. 3 years of healing, rebuilding, learning to breathe again without the weight of betrayal crushing my chest. And in those 3 years, I found something I once thought impossible, real love. Her name was Claire. She wasn't flashy, not the kind of woman who made heads turn the moment she entered a room. But she was steady, kind. The type of person who remembered how I took my coffee without asking, who noticed when it had a long day and quietly brought me my favorite takeout. When I looked at Claire, I didn't feel that dizzying, all-consuming rush I once mistook for love with Emily. Instead, I felt safe, grounded, home. A year into dating, I proposed again. This time, no big crowd, no champagne, no staged spectacle. Just the two of us on a quiet pier at sunset. And when I asked, Claire didn't hesitate. She said yes before I even finished the question. Her yes was everything Emily's no wasn't: pure, simple, certain. Our wedding day was small, intimate, just family and close friends. I had sworn I would never again make myself a spectacle in love. Claire agreed. It was perfect. And yet, perfection has a way of drawing out ghosts. 2 months after our wedding, as we were settling into married life, I got an email. The subject line froze me in place, from Emily. My stomach tightened, a dull ache I thought had long disappeared. Against every rational impulse, I opened it. Her words were shaky, desperate, typed like someone spilling thoughts at 3 a.m. I know I'm the last person you want to hear from. I know I destroyed everything. But I need to tell you something. I never stopped thinking about you. I never stopped loving you. Ryan, then Mark, none of them meant anything compared to you. Please, just one chance to see you. I'm not asking to ruin your marriage. I just need closure. Please. Closure. That cursed word. I sat staring at the screen, anger and pity twisting together in my chest. I hadn't thought about her in months. And yet, with one email, she was back under my skin. I didn't respond. But that wasn't the end. She began sending more messages. At first, they came weekly, then daily. Long confessions, apologies, memories she dredged up from years ago. Some were heartbreaking. I watch your wedding video online. You look happy? I'm glad you're happy. I just wish it had been with me. Others were chilling. Claire will never know you like I do. She will never understand the real you. You're mine, even if you don't see it yet. I blocked her email. She created new ones. I blocked her number. She found ways to message me through social media. Finally, she crossed the line. One afternoon, I came home from work and Claire was pale, holding an envelope. Inside was a photo of us, Claire and I, walking through the park, hand in hand, taken from a distance. On the back, in Emily's handwriting, were the words, "You can try to erase me, but I'm always there, watching." That night, Claire confronted me. Her voice trembled, but not with anger, with fear. Who is she? Why is she watching us? I told her everything, every detail of my history with Emily. The proposal, the betrayal, the humiliations, the second chance, the second betrayal, the final goodbye. Claire listened in silence, her hand gripping mine like a lifeline. And when I finished, she only said, "Well handled this together." For the first time, I realized the true difference between Emily and Claire. Emily thrived on chaos, secrets, power plays. Claire believed in unity, in facing storms side by side. We went to the police. At first, they brushed it off as harassment. But when Emily began showing up outside my office, lingering near our apartment, leaving flowers with notes like we were supposed to grow old together, the police finally intervened. A restraining order was filed. Emily disappeared. Or so I thought. 6 months later, Claire gave birth to our first child, a little girl named Sophie. Holding her in my arms, I felt a love so fierce, so unconditional, it eclipsed every wound Emily had ever inflicted. But happiness, it seemed, always tempted shadows. One evening, as Claire rocked Sophie to sleep, I stepped outside to bring in the mail. And there it was, a single envelope tucked between bills. No stamp, no return address. Inside was a photograph. Sophie, our daughter, asleep in her crib. My hands shook as I flipped it over. On the back, in that same cursed handwriting, "She is your eyes." Beautiful. Just like I always imagined our child would be. That was the moment I realized betrayal wasn't just a wound of the past, it had become a danger in the present. Emily wasn't just a ghost. She was a storm that refused to die. And for the first time, I wondered if my story with her wasn't over after all. Continuation, the storm that wouldn't die, the photo of Sophie in her crib changed everything. Until then, Emily had been a ghost from my past, haunting, yes, but mostly a nuisance I could push aside. But that picture, it was proof she had been inside our home. Proof that my past betrayal had grown into a present threat. I called the police immediately. They took the photo, promised to look into it, but their tone made it clear they didn't understand the gravity. To them, she was just an ex with hurt feelings. To me, she was a predator who had crossed the line from heartbreak into madness. That night, Claire couldn't sleep. She sat rocking Sophie long after Shed drifted off, her eyes fixed on the window like she expected Emily to be standing there. And maybe she wasn't wrong. For weeks after, little signs unnerved us. A bouquet of roses left on our doorstep with no note. A voicemail, static, then a whisper, "You can't keep her from me." A child's rattle left on our car windshield. Claire begged me to move. She knows where we live. She knows about Sophie. We can't stay here. So, we did. We moved across the city, changed numbers, tightened security. For a while, the silence that followed felt like victory. But storms don't end that easily. One afternoon, about a year later, I received a message from an unknown number. Against my better judgment, I opened it. It was a picture of Sophie again, but not recent. This was from her first birthday party, a photo we had posted privately, visible only to close family and friends. The caption below it read, "I was there. You didn't even notice me." My blood turned to ice. I knew then that Emily wasn't just watching from afar. She was infiltrating our lives. She had access to things she shouldn't. And the bitterest twist of betrayal hit me again. Someone close to us must have been feeding her information. I went through the list of everyone invited that day. Friends, family, co-workers. Who would do it? Who would betray me by opening the door to her? I didn't have answers, just paranoia that gnawed at me. The breaking point came on a rainy night. Claire and I were cleaning up after dinner when the baby monitor crackled. We froze. Through the speaker, instead of Sophie's soft breaths, came a voice. A woman's voice. "Don't worry, sweet girl. Mommy's here now." Claire screamed. I sprinted upstairs, my heart pounding like a war drum. The nursery door was wide open. Sophie was safe, still asleep, but the window was unlocked, rain dripping onto the carpet. And on the crib, resting beside her tiny hand, was a silver locket. Inside was a photo. Not of Sophie, not of Claire. Of me. From years ago. That was the night we stopped pretending this was something we could handle alone. I pressed charges, hired private security, and pushed harder with the police. Finally, with enough evidence, Emily was arrested. But here's the part that still haunts me. When they took her away, she didn't fight. She didn't scream or deny it. She just looked at me, calm as the rain, and whispered, "You'll see. She'll love me more than she'll ever love you." Emily was sentenced to psychiatric treatment. She was gone from our day-to-day life, but her shadow lingered. Claire struggled with nightmares. I found myself checking locks 5 times a night. Sophie grew up never knowing why her parents were so cautious, why they flinched at unmarked mail or anonymous phone calls. Years passed. We tried to rebuild normalcy. But betrayal doesn't just scar you. Sometimes it breeds fear that outlives the betrayer. And then, last month, 10 years after my failed proposal, 5 years after Emily was locked away, I got a letter. No return address. Handwritten. The handwriting I knew too well. I'm better now. They say I've healed. I'm coming home. Don't worry. I'll find you. I always do. When I read those words, every old wound tore open. The humiliation of the proposal, the affairs, the stalking, the invasion of my family's safety, all of it came flooding back. Claire looked at me, pale and shaking, and asked the question I've been asking myself ever since: do we run again, or do we finally fight back? Continuation. When the past becomes a predator, the letter wasn't just a reminder of Emily. It was a declaration. I stared at it for what felt like hours, gripping the paper until my knuckles went white. Claire stood beside me, holding Sophie, trembling. The terror in her eyes mirrored my own. Emily had been gone for years, arrested, institutionalized, locked away from our lives. And yet, here she was, reminding us she had never left. We didn't run. We couldn't. Sophie was too young, too precious, and the idea of uprooting her life terrified me even more than facing Emily. Instead, we fortified. Security cameras, alarms, locks on every door and window. I even installed a panic room, something I had never imagined needing when I first thought of starting a family. And yet, Emily's shadow found cracks. It started with small things. At first, just signs that she had been nearby, a note left under the doormat, a single rose with a cryptic message, a car parked down the street that disappeared before we could reach it. Then the threats grew bolder. One night, Claire was leaving the grocery store. When she returned, she saw our mailbox smashed open. Inside were pictures of Sophie and me, taken at the playground. Someone had been watching us. My stomach turned over. I realized with cold clarity, Emily had learned how to bypass surveillance, how to lurk in shadows without leaving traces. She wasn't just obsessed with me anymore. She was obsessed with the life we'd built. One rainy evening, I was working late at the office when my phone buzzed. An unknown number. I see everything. You can't hide. And one day, shall be mine. The screen went black. No message threads. No number to trace. Just a threat delivered in an instant. I called Claire immediately. We locked the doors, checked the cameras, but there was no sign of her. That's the terrifying part about someone like Emily. She could appear anywhere, vanish anywhere, and always make you question every shadow. Weeks turned into months. Every day was a battle for normalcy. Claire tried to shield Sophie from fear, but she couldn't hide it from me. I couldn't either. Every visitor, every knock at the door, every stranger on the street set my heart racing. And then, one night, the unthinkable happened. I was asleep when I heard a creak. My bedroom door. Slight. Deliberate. My blood ran cold. I grabbed the baseball bat I kept under the bed and tiptoed into the hall. There she was, Emily, standing in the shadows, her face pale, eyes wild, a twisted smile curling across her lips. "Hello," she whispered. "Did you miss me?" The world narrowed to the sound of my heartbeat, the sight of my family behind me. I raised the bat, adrenaline surging. "Get out, now." She tilted her head, calm and terrifying. "I just wanted to see you." To see her? She gestured toward Sophie's bedroom. I gritted my teeth. "You don't touch my family. Ever." She laughed softly, chilling me to the bone. "I've watched, I've waited, I've learned. And soon you'll see. I've always been a part of you. Always." Before I could react, she vanished into the shadows as if she had never been there at all. After that night, the police finally understood the danger. Emily was captured in a sting operation weeks later, trying to break into another family's home, a copycat of her obsession. She was institutionalized again, this time with tighter security and stricter supervision. But the damage she caused didn't vanish. Claire and I moved across the country. New city, new house, new identities almost. I changed jobs. Claire quit hers and started a home business so we could avoid public exposure. Every day, every moment, we lived in vigilance. And yet, in the quiet moments, I still thought about Emily. Not with longing, never with longing, but with a haunted understanding of betrayal, of how a single person could destroy the sense of safety and trust we built, how obsession could warp love into terror. Sophie grew up safe, as far as we could protect her. But I knew, in my heart, that scars linger. That betrayal, once sown, never fully disappears. Sometimes, late at night, when I watch her sleep and listen to Claire breathing beside me, I imagine a shadow at the window. And I remember, betrayal isn't always about losing someone you loved. Sometimes it's about surviving the person who refuses to let go. And that's the hardest lesson of all. Continuation, the shadow always follows. It had been nearly 2 years since Emily's last capture. I thought the nightmare had ended. Claire and I were settling into a quiet life, far from our old city, in a small coastal town where nobody knew our names, our history, or our fears. Sophie was thriving, the picture of innocence, her laughter like sunlight in a house that had finally begun to feel safe. But the shadows never stay buried. It started subtly. A toy left on the porch that didn't belong to Sophie. A note slipped under the door, "You can't hide from me." The faint sound of a car idling down the street at odd hours, always gone before I could see the driver. At first, I blamed paranoia. After everything Emily had done, any unusual occurrence set my nerves on fire. Claire, always the calm one, assured me we were fine. But I knew better. Emily never gave up. Then the manipulations began. I received a series of anonymous letters, each one revealing personal details about our lives, details no one could have known unless they were watching, listening, following us. She referenced conversations Claire and I had in private, my thoughts about Sophie, even my work schedules. She wasn't just obsessed with me anymore. She was obsessed with our family. One night, a package arrived at our door. Inside was a single object, the first engagement ring I had ever bought for Emily. The diamond gleamed under the porch light, a cruel reminder of my humiliation years ago. And attached was a note, "I never stopped thinking about us. I see what you have now, but it's still mine. You'll understand soon." I felt bile rise in my throat. The familiar terror I thought I'd buried flared to life again. The real escalation came 2 months later. I returned home from work to find Claire shaken, Sophie asleep, but the front door ajar. My heart dropped to my stomach. Nothing appeared missing, nothing stolen. But on the kitchen counter sat a new envelope. Inside, a photograph of Sophie sleeping in her crib, taken that day, taken from inside our house. And beneath it, written in Emily's jagged handwriting, "She's beautiful, just like I imagined, but she'll be mine one day." I felt a cold rage, sharper than fear. Emily had crossed every line. She had invaded the one place I thought untouchable, our home, our family. We hired private security, installed cameras, alarms, even panic rooms. I changed locks multiple times, reinforced windows, and made sure Claire and Sophie were never alone for long. And yet she always found cracks. One evening, as Claire tucked Sophie into bed, I heard the faintest click at the back window. I grabbed my bat, creeping silently toward the sound. Outside, the bushes swayed unnaturally. I showed a flashlight and froze. There she was, Emily, pale, wet from the rain, smiling with that same terrifying calm. "Hello, Ryan," she said softly. "I've missed you. I've missed her too." "Get away from my family," I growled, voice shaking with rage and fear. "I swear I will call the police." She tilted her head, eyes glinting. "Oh, they'll never understand. You'll never understand. She's the one I was meant to have. You're just in the way." Before I could act, she vanished into the darkness, leaving only the rain-soaked grass and the lingering smell of her perfume. After that night, Claire and I realized that hiding wasn't enough. Emily wasn't just obsessed, she was intelligent, methodical, relentless. We had to fight back. I began tracking her movements through every lead I could find. Reports of break-ins, stolen cars, sightings in neighboring towns, all pointed back to her. She was testing us, pushing boundaries, learning how far she could go before being stopped. It was exhausting, terrifying. We couldn't leave Sophie alone, couldn't answer the door, couldn't trust anyone outside our inner circle. Then came the night of the confrontation. Emily had broken into a nearby store to steal items linked to me, pictures, mementos, even a package addressed to our new home. Security cameras finally caught her face clearly. Using the footage, I coordinated with law enforcement. But Emily was clever. She always knew when to slip away. Finally, after a tense 3-week investigation, authorities managed to trap her in an abandoned warehouse near the coast. I was there when they took her into custody, this time for good. But even as they led her away, she turned to me calm as ever and whispered, "You think this ends here? I will find a way. I always do." Even after her capture, the psychological scars remained. Claire couldn't sleep without double-checking doors and windows. Sophie occasionally asked about the lady in the window, the innocence of childhood tainted by Emily's obsession. And me? I lay awake at night, staring at the ceiling, knowing that betrayal doesn't just wound you once. It evolves. It stalks. It waits. And Emily never stopped. I finally realized that the true horror of betrayal isn't just the initial act. It's when the person refuses to let go, when they turn obsession into a weapon aimed at everything you love. And sometimes the only way to survive isn't to forgive. It isn't even to escape. It's to prepare. Because the storm doesn't pass. It only gathers strength. And the shadows? They always follow. Continuation, the final confrontation. It had been nearly a year since Emily's last capture. We thought the nightmare was over. Claire and I, along with Sophie, tried to rebuild a sense of normalcy. We had moved yet again, this time to a remote countryside home surrounded by acres of forest far from prying eyes. Every door was reinforced, every window secured, every visitor screened. But Emily was patient. And patient is dangerous. It started subtly. A stranger in town who seemed unusually interested in our routines. Packages left in odd places with no return address. Notes tucked into Sophie's backpack. Signs small enough to ignore but deliberate, precise. Then one night, it escalated beyond subtlety. I was downstairs with Claire when we heard the sound of shattering glass. Every muscle in my body froze. I ran toward the noise. The back door, our reinforced steel door, had been tampered with. Someone had tried to force entry. And standing there, in the moonlight, was Emily. She wasn't wet this time. She wasn't frantic. She was calm, almost serene, with a smile that chilled me to my bones. "Hello, Ryan," she whispered. "I've missed you, and I've missed her." She gestured toward Sophie's bedroom. I gritted my teeth. "You're done, Emily. I won't let you touch my family, ever." She tilted her head, her eyes gleaming with obsession. "Oh, but you don't understand. I don't want to hurt her, not yet. I want her to see who she should love. And that's me. Always me." I lunged at her. She moved faster than I expected, slipping past me with unnatural agility. In an instant, I realized this wasn't just obsession. This was a carefully executed plan. She had studied us for months, learned our routines, found ways around security. Claire appeared behind me, holding Sophie tightly. "Call the police," she screamed. I fumbled for my phone. Emily laughed, a soft, chilling sound. "They won't catch me this time." I realized then that negotiation wouldn't work. Reasoning wouldn't work. She had no fear of consequences. She had become something darker, more dangerous than I had ever imagined. And then I noticed something, a mask of familiarity. Emily wasn't alone. She had someone with her, a man who had been watching the property from the trees. It was obvious she had recruited help, someone who enabled her obsession to become real-world intrusion. The standoff lasted hours. Every move she made was calculated. Every word designed to undermine my confidence, to make me question myself. And yet, I couldn't back down. Not now. Not after everything. Claire whispered, "We have to fight. FO Sophie." I nodded. Fear surged through me, but determination burned brighter. When she attempted to grab Sophie, I tackled her to the ground. She fought like a wild animal, screaming threats and promises that made my blood run cold. The man she had with her tried to intervene, but I managed to disarm him long enough for Claire to secure Sophie in the car. By the time the police arrived, Emily and her accomplice had barricaded themselves in the house. The standoff lasted hours. Negotiators tried to reason with her, but Emily's obsession had turned into full-blown mania. Finally, using a tactical team, the police entered. Emily fought, but she was restrained. As they dragged her away, she looked directly at me, her expression unreadable. "You can never take me out of your life. I will always be part of you. You'll see one day. You'll understand." I watched her go, knowing she might be institutionalized again, but also knowing something terrifying. Her words weren't empty. They were a promise, a shadow that would linger forever. In the aftermath, we moved again, this time internationally. We changed our names. Claire changed careers to work from home. I began consulting on security systems, everything learned from years of surviving Emily's obsession. Sophie grew up, unaware of the terror that had stalked her early years, protected by parents who would do anything to shield her from the world's darkness. But even as life began to feel normal, there were moments I could not forget. The letter left on the doorstep, the photograph taken inside our house, the whispered threats in the night. Betrayal, I realized, doesn't just wound once. It evolves. It stalks. It waits. And sometimes the people who hurt you most refuse to disappear. Now, years later, as I tuck Sophie into bed, I glance at Claire. She smiles, tired but unwavering, safe, loved, family intact, and yet I still check the locks at night, still scan the perimeter, still wonder if someday Emily's shadow will return, because some betrayals are never truly over, and some ghosts never die. Continuation, the never-ending shadow. It had been 5 years since Emily's last capture. 5 years in which Claire, Sophie, and I had tried to rebuild a life stripped of fear, yet still haunted by echoes of betrayal. We moved frequently, always staying a step ahead. Security was paramount: cameras, motion sensors, panic rooms, encrypted communications. But despite every precaution, Emily had not been silenced. She had only adapted. It started with reports in the media, unusual break-ins in towns hundreds of miles apart. At first, they seemed unrelated, random, but patterns emerged. In each case, the intruder had striking similarities to Emily, meticulous, calculating, almost ritualistic in leaving personal messages referencing her victims' pasts. I felt a cold dread settle over me. She had not vanished, she had learned to operate beyond my reach. She had gone from personal obsession to a predator with a network. One night, Claire and I returned home to find a package in the driveway. Inside was a small USB drive. I plugged it into my laptop cautiously. A single video file played. It was Sophie, sleeping. On her bed, camera angles indicated it was filmed from inside our home. Then the screen flickered and Emily appeared, whispering, "You can run. You can hide. But I always know where you are, and one day I will have what's mine." The sound of her voice sent a shiver through me. She had managed to breach every layer of our supposed fortress, and now her obsession was no longer just about me, it was about Sophie, about the family we had built in spite of her. I realized then that this was no longer a personal battle, it was a war. I contacted federal authorities, cybersecurity experts, and private investigators. Emily had transformed her obsession into a network, hacking into cameras, manipulating delivery services, even leaving hints that suggested she had accomplices across the country. Claire and I made a desperate decision. We had to disappear entirely. New identities, new home. Even Sophie's school records were altered to erase our traces. But even that wasn't enough. Emily escalated. She appeared in towns we had fled to, always just out of reach, always leaving traces. Notes on caf tables, photographs of us taken from afar, even gifts for Sophie with notes signed simply, "From someone who knows you better than anyone." And then, the final twist of betrayal, she began manipulating people close to us. Couriers, neighbors, even co-workers, anyone who could feed her information about our location. Slowly, She had built a network of eyes and ears. She was everywhere, and she was patient. The climactic confrontation came unexpectedly. One rainy night, as Claire was tucking Sophie into bed, the alarms on our property went off. Lights flashed, and cameras detected movement at the perimeter. I grabbed my firearms and ran outside. There she was, Emily. Wet, calm, eerily serene. And behind her, 3 men, strangers who had been recruited to help her carry out her plans. "You thought you could hide," she said softly, "but you belong to me. You always have." The standoff was tense. Every move was calculated. Claire called the authorities while I tried to buy time, but it was clear that this confrontation would not be resolved peacefully. Emily lunged toward the house. I tackled her, struggling, but one of the accomplices advanced toward the door. Shots were fired. Chaos erupted. Through the fray, I realized something horrifying. She had memorized our routines, our defenses, even our weaknesses. She wasn't just obsessed, she had become a tactical threat. The police intervened just in time, incapacitating Emily and her accomplices. But the confrontation left scars deeper than any physical wound. Claire and I, safe for now, realized the depth of her obsession. She would never stop until she destroyed everything we had built. Even institutionalization could not contain her. Even legal consequences could not restrain her mind, which had become a web of manipulation, obsession, and cunning. Months passed, and we rebuilt again, though warily. We taught Sophie the basics of awareness, never fear, just caution. We never spoke of Emily in front of her, but the vigilance never ended. Every unknown car, every unmarked package, every shadow was a potential threat. And yet, despite everything, life had a fragile thread of hope. Sophie laughed. Claire and I held each other close. We understood that the only way to survive an unending betrayal was to cherish the present while guarding the future. But even in quiet moments, I cannot help but check the locks, the cameras, the perimeter, knowing one day Emily's shadow may return. Because some betrayals don't end with distance, or prison, or time. They evolve, they adapt, and some ghosts are relentless. And that is the true cost of betrayal, a life lived in vigilance, with love shadowed by the knowledge that the one who hurt you most may never truly disappear.